Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Garrett Smith, known as the nutrition detective around these here YouTube parts. And we have a very special guest today. We have the man who started the low vitamin A or the vitamin A detox nutrition approach. Fixed a lot of his own stuff. He was actually the inspiration for when I was introduced to him years ago through Matt Stone. I looked into his work at first and I said, it might be a fad. I'm just going to, like a lot of people have said, I'm just going to let this go for a bit. Matt wrote a blog post about it, made a lot of points in it about, like, let's say muscle meat carnivores not getting vitamin A deficiency, and talked about vitamin A toxicity. And then I looked into Grant's work, and I got halfway through his first book. And to mention his free ebooks, if you would like to read them, if you have not yet, are at his website, Genereux.blog. I'll let Joe put it up here to spell it. And so then I got into it, and then I realized that I wasn't going to eat the same diet as Grant did, the beef or bison and the black beans and the white or brown rice. And I wanted to figure out ways to help my clients with this, because it worked. I did it on myself and it worked, and I wanted to help my people. And so I started working on more foods that could be consumed. So anyway, so that's my little background on it. And then I started expanding into the Love Your Liver stuff. And now we have Grant, who did his thing at his blog, and lots of people have gotten into it, and he's here today. So thank you for joining us, Grant.
My pleasure. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I have questions that I've accumulated from people in the Love Your Liver program. If you're going to send a super chat, we're going to cut this off at 2 hours. Grant has already said he's open to doing another episode. So if you choose to send super chats, we may get to them today, or we may wait until the next episode, just so we can get through as much as possible today without kind of interrupting the flow. So anyway, let me get into the questions that I assembled, and we'll just get going. So Grant, one of the first questions to kind of lead into this stuff was, what was your diet like before the low vitamin A stuff?
Yeah, no, it's very standard North American diet. What really got me into trouble was, I started really consuming a lot of dairy. That was in response to my dentist telling me I had a lot of gum recession and, need more calcium. So I was, pounding back pretty ridiculous amounts of dairy, maybe like a half a gallon a day kind of thing. Of course, it did nothing for my gum recession. And I think that's one of the things that really kind of tipped me over to vitamin A toxicity.
Okay, cool.
So nothing special about my diet, just an everyday guy going through my life, nothing special.
Well, that is quite a bit of dairy. I was just talking to somebody today about their dairy consumption. They were doing the raw milk and the raw butter and all that stuff, and they got messed up, and the liver, which we'll talk a little bit about too. So yeah, folks, one of the things I like to emphasize that Grant's work brought to my attention is that natural and synthetic vitamin A are exactly the same toxicity. They are the same molecule. They are the same toxicity. The only thing is, when people try to justify it as, well, only supplements cause vitamin A toxicity, well, people are always adding a supplement of vitamin A on top of their already vitamin A containing diet. So of course it's going to look like the supplements are worse because it's more. It's automatically more. So anyway, so yeah, dairy can do it. The fortified dairy or the real deal stuff, the raw milk stuff. It doesn't. If you've ever seen colostrum frozen, you see how yellow it is, and that's from all the vitamin A in it. So anyway, so let's get to the next question. Okay, so some people just wanted to get clear, Grant, on how long it took you. Well, let's be clear here first. Like you did nearly all of your nutrition journey right now without any supplements, correct?
Yeah, no supplements. Yeah.
I mean, you had periods where you took a little bit of something, but it was never anything that was like significant.
A little bit of zinc. I think that's the only supplement I've taken. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So people wanted to know about the timeline of the resolution of some of your health issues. So we'll just kind of go through the main ones that we know about. If there's any others that you want to talk about,
sure,
feel free to add them. But the first one I wanted to go over was, since I just did a post on psoriasis yesterday, eczema. How long did that take to go away?
Well, that took the longest. I think Actually, I wrote about this in my 9-year update. I charted out kind of my progression with each one of these kind of major symptoms that I had, or disease conditions. So the eczema took kind of about 1.5 or 2 years to kind of mostly clear up, but lots of little regressions. And so, even though I kind of mostly recovered, every few months, a bit of a regression. And so it took, I don't know, another, 2 years after that to kind of fully resolve from it. But I was through the worst of it for sure in the first 2 years. Like, in my very worst state, I had it pretty much body-wide. Yeah, it's like, at any one time I was kind of, when my worst conditions, probably covering about 40% of my body. And then, when I say I had these regressions, kind of the size of a dime here and there, and almost exclusively on my hands and fingers for whatever reason. So that was the time frame for recovery from eczema.
Well, how long did it take you to notice when you started on the diet? How long did it take you to notice improvements, like some improvement, some positive change?
Yeah, that was this Shazam moment, because when I first started this, of course, I had no expectation at all that it was ever going to work. And just foolish, crazy thing. But prior to that, for almost, I'm going to say almost 8 years, 10 years, maybe, low grade joint pain in my knees primarily. And so kind of at day 21, that joint pain completely resolved and never regressed. So that was the most remarkable sign that, possibly is on the right track. So the joint pain. The kidney disease was probably, I was diagnosed in 2006 with chronic kidney disease. And the primary marker that my nephrologist was tracking was protein in the urine and also creatinine. By, I think, year 2, I no longer had any protein in the urine. And the creatinine levels have just finally, they're in the normal range now. So kind of got the all clear on the chronic kidney disease. What else was on the list? I don't know.
I think, let me see, there was... the jaundice.
Oh, well, jaundice, I never really tracked that. It was like, okay, when I was really sick, I was yellow, like in the whole upper part of my body had turned yellow. And, and I didn't really track it, but I'm going to say probably, I'm guessing here, 3 to 6 months. And it was, I'm going to say, resolved from specifically that. Yeah.
Okay. And then any eye issues you had? So the question was about your eye issues. If you had any, what were they, and how long did they take until resolution?
Well, so when I was, very sick, I had what I called this dull, cloudy vision, and I was definitely losing my eyesight. It was so bad that I was concerned that I shouldn't be driving anymore, because I knew it was that bad. And then probably kind of as I wrote on my updates, I think it was kind of year probably 3, maybe 4, started to notice an improvement in the brightness, the overall brightness and clarity of my vision had improved. And then the brightness of colors, first it started with yellows, and then kind of a year later, it started with the reds and greens. So everything just became brighter and clearer. So I'm going to say, 5 years, maybe a bit more for my vision to make really kind of a very noticeable improvement. But, I still don't have perfect vision. I'd like to improve my long distance vision, but I'm going to work on that without glasses and see how I can go with that. But right now, my overall eye health is actually perfect. My vision is good.
Did you ever have any of the night blindness, like the halos around things and that kind of stuff?
I don't remember the halos, but I definitely had, I think, 2 episodes of night blindness. And it's a pretty freaky condition. Like, if you haven't experienced it and it happens, it's like there's no missing it, right? If I'm out at night or driving, and couldn't see things that everybody else could see. So that's completely resolved. Also, I've got excellent night vision now. So, but that was sporadic. I didn't have that originally, and I think that I have to go back and look at my blog post to kind of see the time frame of it. But probably year 5, I had an episode of it, and it lasted for about 3 to 5 months, kind of thing, maybe 6 months, and then it's fully resolved. So, but yeah, very, very interesting condition if you haven't experienced it.
Did you ever have dry eye?
I did. I had a couple episodes of dry eye, which completely correlated with the poor night vision. Yeah,
okay.
So yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out, as Grant pointed out in his books, and as I've, built upon, like the 2 biggest symptoms supposedly of vitamin A deficiency that conventional medicine says is night blindness and dry eye getting so bad that you're actually scratching your eye with your eyelid, called keratomalacia. Right. So they say that these are vitamin A deficiency symptoms, and we say that they are toxicity symptoms.
Absolutely.
And also I've been through the research. Zinc deficiency. Zinc is critical to vitamin A detox and vitamin A and protecting yourself against vitamin A, especially retinol binding protein in the eyes. So if you don't have enough zinc, and or if you've got too much vitamin A or not enough zinc, these are all conditions that are related to that thing. So that's where we get into the whole toxicities and deficiencies. They all kind of combine together, and that's where you can have problems, because people might be supplementing zinc all day, and they're like, but I still have dry eye, but I still have, night blindness. When what they really need to do, always remember that taking out what Grant did was he took out the poison, the toxin, and things fixed themselves. So again, from his work, the biggest thing that I talk about is the key thing is removing the poisons first, because then you don't need as much of the nutrients, and your body can potentially catch up. It may not, but it can. Not putting the poison in means your body doesn't have to deal with it. But if you keep putting the poison in and you try to out supplement it, you're not going to catch up. That's generally what's going to happen. So yeah, so let's get into, let's see. Okay. As I get questions a lot about, like, what do you eat, Dr. Smith? So Grant, what are you eating? How many meals a day? And how do you tend to prepare it these days?
Yeah, nothing's changed there, actually. I'm just steady Eddie with what I do with meals. So I eat 3 meals a day. The only change, I guess, the change that I have made in the last year or so is I switched from bison to beef, just because I wanted to up my fat content. But it's still beef, rice. I mix it up between brown and white rice. I have a little bit of beans. I eat about 1 tablespoon of beans, maybe 2 tablespoons of beans a day max. And sometimes I go for weeks without any beans at all. So I'm kind of still my standard soup is what I call it. And I have some homemade bread. You swap out the rice for the homemade bread every now and then. So that's pretty much it. I have apples a little bit, kind of maybe 1 a day on average, but that's it. Nothing else.
Okay, so basically, so the ground beef, you went from the bison to the beef to up the fat content. Was that just to like maintain your weight? Were you not getting enough calories?
No, I just felt that the bison is just way too low in fat. Like there's no, like bison is incredibly low in fat. And so I just thought I need more fat in my diet. So I didn't really have any clinical indication that I should do that. I just kind of, just out of reason, I thought I need more fat. Yeah.
So for everybody listening, there does seem to be like I've seen people get into issues with, like, let's say somebody's doing all chicken breast. They're doing chicken breast and grains or beans, and there's no added fat. And there has been some issues with that. Mm-hmm. So we do need a certain amount of fat. Like chicken breast with no skin is going to, and just no other fat in the diet, that can be too little. So we've seen that happen. And Grant's saying, bison was too lean with his other stuff. So what I'm hearing is bison, rice, little bit of beans, and an apple a day, basically. Does that sound about right?
Pretty much it. And for the beans, I've never had a problem with the beans. And on my forum, some people said they were having problems with beans. And I just kind of, okay, maybe, I didn't feel like they're doing anything for me or against me. But, I'm kind of maximum like 1 can of beans a week, 1 10-ounce can of beans a week, max. Like probably realistically like a half a can is what I'm doing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, some people tell me in the program, they're like, beans were the best thing that any practitioner ever told them that they could do, because everybody's saying don't do them. And I give people the okay to try them. And then, just like yourself, and myself, like, I don't do great on tons of beans, so I just don't do that. But some people are doing like exclusively the cowboy diet, we call it, and beef and beans, and that's all they eat all day, and they're doing amazing.
Okay.
So it's just, this is why I do my program the way I do it, where it's try beans, try different types of beans. If you tolerate them, great. If you try different types of grains, you can do the rice, you can do other types of grains. If you tolerate them, great. If you don't, then we just work on figuring out what works for people within this framework of things. So yeah, that's great. And you're doing the same thing. You're still kind of on the same general framework. You're just making it work for yourself long term, which is what I tell everybody to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so what foods have you missed the most in the last 10 years that you've been doing this? And do you plan on continuing this diet, and for how long?
I really don't miss any foods. I've gotten really accustomed to my diet, so I don't miss anything. Sometimes, I don't know, maybe an apple pie or something would be nice sometimes, but I don't miss anything. And yes, I'm definitely going to stick to my diet for probably the rest of my life. Like, why not? This vitamin A thing nearly killed me. I'm not going to go back.
So like if you get, sorry, go ahead.
I'm not kidding. Like, this nearly killed me. This vitamin A thing is so close to death. So, why would I reintroduce that? That would be just insane.
So let's say you're at a family holiday and there's apple pie and you get a craving. Are you going to have some, or are you going to skip it? I
would ask what's in it. If there's butter in it, I'm not going to eat it.
Okay.
That actually has happened. I got a family in-law that made some apple crumble, and okay, what's in it? And okay, we'll have a little bit of this, but generally, no, I'm not going to introduce many things back into my diet.
Okay.
I don't need to. My shopping trips are dead simple, and it's like trivial. So I like the simplicity of my diet, and I'm not going to change. Yeah.
Okay, cool. It does make things easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so one question was, you kind of answered this, but how is the bread making going, and have you found a source of non-fortified flour that is working for you on a regular basis?
Yeah, both. So I've bought a grain mill, to mill my own flour. I think it's called Grain Maker. It's a company in Montana. It's a really good unit, actually. So milling up my own organic wheat to get whole grain flour. But I've also learned that you can buy organic whole grain wheat here in Canada that's not fortified with niacin and these other things. So I could also just buy the commercial, but I already have the grain mill. So yeah, I'm making my own homemade sourdough bread. Yeah.
Awesome.
It works great. Yeah, I'm happy with it. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so I had this question here of, are you eating any sugar, and what are your thoughts on that? Well, you kind of just already answered that.
Yeah, right? No sugar. And I wrote a blog post, an updated blog post on obesity causation. I call it obesity causation version 2.0. And in that blog post, I really focused on insulin resistance and this theory that carbohydrates are driving insulin resistance, and kind of debunk that theory. So I wouldn't be opposed to sugar, but there's just no reason for me to have it in my diet, right? So I don't have sugar. I do have honey with my black coffee. That's what it.
Like each day?
Yeah, usually each day. I've cut back. I keep on some. I get off the sauce and then back on it. And so right now I'm low on the coffee. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm not opposed to sugar or carbohydrates. I think that whole thing is a fallacy if you have if you're insulin sensitive.
Yeah, we have people who come to us who, like, let's say they're doing the all muscle meat carnivore. Mm-hmm. And they say, I can't eat carbs. If I eat carbs, I just have this massive reaction. And I ask them, did you used to be able to eat carbs without that? And they go, yes. And I say, well, something you did along the way broke something. Like, it wasn't the carbs didn't change. Your body changed. And vitamin A is a huge part of that.
Yeah, I could speculate on a mechanism there, but let's move on.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Oh, do you ever do chicken much, or did you ever do chicken much in the 10 years?
No, I don't think I've had a piece of chicken in 10 years. No.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No.
So we're coming back to zinc. So what you mentioned, you did supplement a little zinc at one time, and I can go over what you told me that I recall, and then what are your thoughts on zinc supplementation and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I took the zinc tablets. I don't even know if it was zinc picolinate or even what the version was, but I think it was like a 30 milligram, couple times a week, and I did that for I don't know a few months, and then I stopped. And I just once again I didn't detect any benefit from it or any really negative thing from it. But after I've tried the zinc again, a number of years back, and I had a sense that I was experiencing a little bit of joint stiffness, and that just could be my imagination, right? But so I stopped the zinc. So I haven't supplemented with zinc since then.
You didn't take any zinc with copper in it, did you?
No, I didn't. No, I don't think so. No. Yeah.
Well, so I'll just add. So what I remember, what I recall from what you wrote me was you took some zinc for a little while. I what I recall was you were taking it like once every 2 weeks because you were concerned about overdoing it.
Yeah, that's right. Something like that.
I remember it being zinc picolinate, which is what I use. Although we use zinc niacinate too, so zinc bound to nicotinic acid, which is really cool. And then you mentioned that you thought you felt better for 2 or 3 days afterwards. Yeah. And then that would kind of fade away. So I just wanted to, whether, whoever's remembering everything properly, like we're similar in the same area.
Yeah, it's 10 years ago. I don't remember the details.
And you were eating you're eating at least, generally through all this whole thing, you've been eating about a pound of meat or more a day. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And I think the bison is actually higher in zinc. So I don't think I had any, lack of zinc, but I think that's overall generally accurate.
Okay. Because one of the things that I have concerns about with people doing this is, let's say they do whatever their chosen low vitamin A diet is. Mm-hmm. If they come into this whole thing with a really significant zinc deficiency and a really significant vitamin A toxicity and a really significant copper toxicity and or cadmium, all of these things, and arsenic too, all of these things kind of drain zinc. And so as they are on the low vitamin A diet, they may or may not be, the food is deficient too. So they may or may not be getting enough zinc to kind of fix that part of it. And there's the zinc with the vitamin A thing, but there's also the zinc with all the other skin stuff. So one of the things that I think could be happening for some people when they have issues on the diet is that they just have a zinc deficiency that they're not catching back up on. That's just a theory of mine. And I use a lot of zinc and I do a lot of testing for zinc and I see it help.
Okay. Yeah.
So anyway, let's go to, your thoughts on activated charcoal or charcoal supplements added to food or supplemented.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea if you can, tolerate it. I used activated charcoal kind of my first year, I suppose. For me, super easy to, constipate yourself by, overdoing it. So for me, I couldn't tolerate a whole lot of it. But yeah, no, I think it's actually clinically, prescribed for vitamin A toxicity. I found a kind of a procedure sheet for treating people with vitamin A toxicity, and the go-to solution is for acute vitamin A toxicity is activated charcoal. So I think it's a good option for people. But I just once again, just be really careful on the dose because you can overdo it.
Yeah. The only thing in the literature that is really a problem with activated charcoal is like constipation, but I believe that's typically from people who are already constipated, and then they take like a poison control dose of charcoal, or they take some huge amount at home because they're just scared and they just want to fix the problem. And they take like tons. And there's actually, I think there's a case study in the literature about toxic megacolon because somebody blocked up their guts so bad. Yeah. With the charcoal, and charcoal can be constipating because it does actually really soak up bile very, very well. Yeah. And if you soak up your bile trigger for your pooping, you don't have the trigger to poop as well. So yeah. So,
but there's also people. Sorry, I was going to say for me, I'd take maybe a quarter of a teaspoon, like every third day, and I could deal with that. But anything more than that, it would start to slow me up, and I sure don't like that. So anyway, but different people have different experience, right? So you got to find what works for you.
I was just talking to a client just yesterday about I found a small group of people where it seems that charcoal actually triggers them to dump bile more.
Okay.
And on the charcoaltimes.com website or the charcoalremedies.com, they're run by the same people. They actually said that some people poop better with charcoal. That was where I first got that idea of like, wow, some people respond completely differently to charcoal. So again, we get into you kind of have to try it and see how it goes, and you just adjust based on what your response is.
Just be careful. And that's just like anything else, just be careful. Yeah.
Yep. So, okay. So the next question was, in the last 10 or 11 years, you kind of already answered this. Have you done anything besides food, like supplements or anything else significant other than just the diet for your health? You did the plasmapheresis, right?
Yeah, I still do that.
Okay.
You know, I think it's helpful. It helps a little bit. It's not, by itself, it's no magic, solution. But every little bit counts in my mind. No supplements. Actually think that my cycling was actually beneficial. Just the physical activity and just the heavy breathing that you do when you do hill climbs. I think that was beneficial. So I'm really thinking, my level of exercise, wasn't by any means extraordinary, but I think I do believe it was helpful. And so I think relying on diet alone without exercise would be a mistake. So I think, adding some exercise into this is well advised.
Yeah, actually, I kind of went over that in my weight loss and toxicity thing, where oxidation is how we break down vitamin A. And so you doing exercise, what you tolerate and what works for you is one way of breaking down toxins. Yeah. It helps. So so that's great. Let's see. Oh, and let me just clarify. Are you donating plasma, or are you doing plasmapheresis, or are you doing blood donations?
Well, they call it plasmapheresis here. So it's a plasma donation.
Okay.
So every now and then I'll do a whole blood donation, but I really prefer the plasma. It meets my objective, right? It's like I can do it more often, and you're not losing any red blood cells, so you have no risk of anemia or losing iron. It's it's just serum, and you get your red blood cells back. So it meets my objective. That's what I do. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me just add my little comment on that. I tend to prefer whole blood because the things I don't like about plasma donation, I did it in college, to get beer money for the weekends.
Sure.
Back then. But the reason I prefer whole blood is because they're only taking stuff out.
Yeah.
When they do the plasma donations or the plasmapheresis, they're taking your blood out, they're spinning the red blood cells out, they're taking those, they actually add one or more anticoagulants to the plasma that they're going to put back in you. And then that plasma is running, all your blood and your plasma is running through brand new plastic tubing. So there's going to be phthalates, there's going to be potentially microplastics, it's going to oxidize. Like your blood is really going to oxidize. It's being taken out and put in the air. So
yeah,
Go ahead.
I don't know if it's going to oxidize because, I think it's an airtight system. Like, sometimes when I do it, they will get an air bubble and the machine just completely blocks it and shuts it down. It will not continue if there's any kind of air detection. So I don't think it's going to oxidize so much, but there's obviously some small risks there. I think the net, for me, my assessment, the net benefit is worth that risk, but everyone's got to make their own choice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so what do you think about retinol binding protein research?
Well, I think it's a bunch of nonsense. I had written I think it was in 2018, I wrote a blog post specifically on the retinol binding protein and described it as an antibody. And I think that's exactly what it is. It's a protective mechanism. It's not a transport molecule or transport protein. It's the defensive measure by the cell, which is absolutely remarkable when you really think about it. Here the cell is detecting a single molecule and then deciding to wrap it up in this envelope, to detoxify it or keep it from getting exposed to critical parts of the cell, like the DNA and RNA. And, you know, that to me is just an amazing piece of molecular dexterity. Like if you gave that job to a chemist and say, here, I want you to, you know, detect a single molecule and then wrapper it up, it would be, you know, that would be an amazing feat, but the cell is actually doing it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on retinol binding protein. I think, you know, and I think, you know, what's happened is this whole claim that, oh, here's a vitamin, then everything that's kind of associated has to be justified and say, oh, you know, oh, here's this wrapper that's wrapping up this single toxic molecule. What? Oh, it's vitamin A. Oh, therefore it's got to be beneficial. It's got to be, you know, doing something good. And it just boggles my mind that people can't think for themselves.
Yes, the whole like chaperone, it's a magical chaperone that takes it where it needs to be. And then people don't realize that there's a cellular retinoic acid binding protein. So once it goes into the cell and it's retinoic acid, it even has a special protein there, an antibody. I totally agree with you that the retinol binding protein is antibodies. It's an antibodies. Antibodies are made by the body to bind to toxins.
Yeah. And, you know, furthermore, when you look at the research, you know, there's new discoveries about, you know, target cells are generating their own retinol binding protein. So supposedly, you know, retinol is being delivered to a target cell with the retinol binding protein, but turns out, oh, those target cells are actually generating their own retinol binding protein and expelling retinol. You know, come on, like it's so obvious. But anyway, to me, yeah.
When I was doing a show on the weight loss stuff, I came across that body fat makes retinol binding protein too.
Yeah, fat does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I was just going, wow, the whole body is making this stuff to bind it, and because there's too much of it around. So one of the things I look at retinol binding protein, and I talked a guy on Mike Roberto on Twitter. He puts up a lot of retinol binding protein studies. Okay. And the only reason the body makes this stuff is if there's retinol around.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So it's kind of used as a surrogate. But also, if somebody doesn't get enough protein or they don't get enough zinc, they won't make enough retinol binding protein, which means the vitamin A just stays stuck in the liver and it just starts accumulating there.
Yeah, and there's studies that show that, right?
Yeah, and that's the whole basis of vitamin A deficiency is usually like a protein deficient, a zinc deficient diet.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's malnutrition, but they call it vitamin A deficiency. So anyway, okay, so let's go into your thoughts on sun exposure, as in ultraviolet B and ultraviolet A. And do you feel like you've gotten enough sunlight to like function well, heal well, repair well, and all that stuff?
Well, I'd like to get more sunlight. You know, where I'm in Canada, we can't get much sunlight during the winter at all. And so 9 months of the year without any kind of useful sunlight, I suppose. Well, not to any for, you know, not for tanning or anything like that. So, but in the summers, I really deliberately try to get as much sun as I can. And I absolutely do think it's beneficial. I know it's beneficial. Once again, you have to be careful, right? Just not overdo it. When I first started on this, when I was really sick, I could not tolerate 10 seconds of sunlight. Like literally 10 seconds of sunlight my skin was just erupting. And now I can go out for, you know, an hour in the sun. So, you have to be careful, right? It depends on kind of where you are on this progression. You know, if you have to know that if you're really sun sensitive, don't overdo it. But, you know, with time, you know, like myself, I've become far more tolerant of the sun. I like getting out in the sun. So yeah, I think sunlight is great. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're showing with your experiences exactly what I tell people. So the folks, if you don't tolerate sunlight or tanning beds or sun lamps or any of that stuff, if you have a really strong reaction to them, whether it's burning, whether it's you just don't feel good, you're not ready for that much. Whatever it is, whatever you're doing, it's too much. If you're getting sun damage on your skin, you have too much toxicity in your skin and your body fat. If you don't feel good after it, like if the sun just wipes you out, you're not ready yet, or only do the amount that you tolerate. So if Grant had a problem at 10 minutes, 10 minutes is too much. It might be 5 minutes.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. So
10 seconds.
Now us light skinned folks, we tend to be more sensitive to this because the sun comes in and it oxidizes. So what's the sun's doing is it's oxidizing the toxins, especially vitamin A, in your skin. Yep. And it's making you temporarily more toxic than you were before. And that's going back into your blood and then affecting all that stuff. And I believe sunburns are actually retinaldehyde getting stuck in the skin. And then ALDH is backed up in almost everybody, and that's why they can't turn it into retinoic acid and move it through. So retinaldehyde's been a big topic of mine in recent year, because it's the ALDH problem. I mean, retinoic acid itself inhibits ALDH. So the more of it you make, the slower your ALDH goes. So yeah, folks, sun is good for you unless you're too toxic for it, and then just adjust your dosing. Just like Grant's saying. So Grant was intuitively doing all this stuff and saying, I don't feel good when I do this. I'm not going to do it. This is just what I've kind of codified into a program of listen to your body signals and follow them. So yeah, Grant's just showing what we already try to do. Okay, so Grant, I don't know if you saw this post did you see the study that just came out where they traced all the vitamin A? They had like tracers on the vitamin A that they put in to people, and there was like the tiniest microgram doses. They couldn't find that again, so they're saying they might use this teeny tiny microgram dose, but the rest of it, like Mike was showing, that it recycled through the system, the same vitamin A molecule recycled through the system 37 times.
Yeah, I don't know. That sounds a little bit suspect to me.
Okay.
I don't imagine that. Yeah, I haven't seen that study, but something right away just doesn't add up there for me.
I know. I just kind of go, well, what if they lost it in the analysis process or whatever? I'm kind of going, the amount I saw, if there is some sort of, if we do actually need some amount, what I saw was that a simple beef in your diet would cover it. The small amount in beef would cover it.
Well, yeah, I think right away the reason I say that study sounds suspect to me. I did read a study, a number of years ago. They were looking at how fast does the vitamin A molecule in serum actually transfer into the cell, and this is outside of the retinol binding protein, and it was in 1 millisecond, not 1 second, 1,000th of a second. It's transferring through the cell membrane. It's fat soluble molecule going through a fat membrane. And then very quickly, it's going to bind to, these retinol binding receptors. And, once that's happened, once it's bound to another molecule, it's not going to separate. So, I find that really suspect that they say that this molecule is being recycled and reused. I find that hard to believe. Maybe.
Well, the recycling, I think, is just the body not knowing it's got too much and it doesn't know where to put it. It's running out of spaces to put it. It just keeps. It's like it's just trying. It's like musical chairs. It's trying to find a slot, but
I would have to look at that in detail. Right now, there's something doesn't add up for me there.
Well, as we know, the whole vitamin A narrative doesn't make sense the way we're taught. So
I guess what I'm trying to say is, from a chemistry point of view, once retinol or retinol ester is bound to another molecule, it's not going to unbind. Well, it could with an enzyme, but generally once that bond is made, you need to put some energy in to split that apart again. So that's where my the reason I'm questioning it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I know you probably didn't bring this, but somebody asked, do you have any other blood work from along the 10 years that you would like to share?
I think I've shared most of my blood work on my blog. I haven't really kept up with it. There's no reason for that. But my doctor did call me back in December. My GP, general practitioner, called me and he said, "Oh, we need to do an update on your kidney status." And I just go, "Okay, fine." And there was some blood work done then, and I don't know the details of it, but basically given the all clear on the kidney disease thing. And then my doctor kind of in a summary said, "This is amazing." He said, "You were supposed to be on dialysis 10 years ago. You're still here. You're looking great." He said, "You have the cholesterol level he said, your cholesterol level is amazing. You have the blood pressure of a 15-year-old. And he said, every other patient that I have virtually, at your age is on a statin and you're on nothing. And, great." And, of course, he had no curiosity as to why, right? He didn't ask why that might be, and just said, "I don't need to see you again. There's no reason to come and see me again unless you have something come up." And so that was kind of my last quote checkup, if you want to call it. And for the most part, I've checked out of the mainstream medical system. There's no reason for me to continue with it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we've had two people that I know of. Their hepatologists have discharged them. They're like, a hepatologist, usually when you have somebody with liver problems that's going to a hepatologist, like everybody knows that they're just that the expectations are they're going downhill.
Yeah.
And now we have two people where the hepatologist said, you don't need to come back anymore. Your problem's gone. And did the hepatologist care?
No,
not really.
No, they got a waiting room full of sick people. They're just going to move on to the next guy. No.
So what else was I going to ask? There was. Okay. Do you have any current health issues now after 10 years on this? Or is your health so good that like no interventions are necessary? You may have just kind of answered that.
Yeah, no, my health is really good right now. And it has been for a good long time. So I feel, really good. There's no interventions, I guess. Why would I intervene? But I do want to improve my strength and my flexibility, just, overall improve my overall level of fitness, right? And like calisthenics or something. So, that's, now that I've retired from my daytime job, I have more time. And so I'll focus more on improving my strength and agility, cycle more often, just get more active. So that's just to improve where I'm at.
Well, if you ever have any questions on that, I could help you as another mature guy who's into the fitness world. If you ever want any tips, I can always help you with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, actually this kind of leads into, how many years was it after you started that you got that serum retinol so low?
I think that was in my third year. I was down I think it was the third year where I was down to 0.1 micromole per liter. And then I think in my year 4, I did it again and I was at 0.1. So yeah, I think it's year 3 or 4 where I'd gotten that low. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay. So actually, do you have any special plans, like health in the health field, or in writing, or in your blog, or any of that stuff? Now that you retired? Yes,
I do, absolutely. So I got kicked out of my last job during the pandemic. Won't talk about why, but a lot of other people got kicked out of their jobs at the same time. And so I took on a new job, and it just ended up being really hectic and really busy. It was all good and everything. So I just didn't have any time, really free time on my hands to pursue this vitamin A topic or many other things. So I am wanting to get much more active and involved on this vitamin A topic, because I think although we've made a lot of good progress in kind of getting the awareness out there and getting people talking about it, and seeing people making nice recoveries in their health, we still have a long ways to go though. And so I will endeavor to do whatever I can to move that forward. I've got some other research interests. One is with coral reef bleaching and this CO2 climate scam that's going on. So I'll be doing some active work on that. So those are kind of the two things that I'll be doing. Those are kind of my, let's say, call them hobby projects, but I'm quite serious about both of them. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we kind of hit on that. Okay, so just to give everybody a heads up, if you have any topics you want to ask Grant, we went through this really fast because Grant doesn't talk as much as I do. So if you have super chats and you want to ask Grant questions, you can start posting those, and we'll take them. So let's see. Well, we kind of hit on the past and the present and the future. Grant, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on fasting?
I think fasting is a bad idea. I think it's a bad idea. There's no reason to do that. And I think it's actually, I think it could be dangerous. So why do that? I don't think it's going to help you.
Yeah, I kind of thought the same. I was watching, as I watched the health world go through like paleo and keto and all these other things of eating tons of one specific type of food. And then all of a sudden, then intermittent fasting came on the scene where it's just like eat less of the daytime. And then that led into fasting, you know, just water fasting or juice fasting. And I don't know if you know, but it's gone even further now into dry fasting, where people are not even drinking water for 1, 2, or some people even say they make it 3 days. And they say that you're magically turning fat into water, and that's why you don't.
Well,
I know, I do. Oh, you
no, but no. I was gonna say there'd be some truth to that, right? Because if you bring down your carbohydrate food intake down to 0 or near 0, let's say 0, and so you're going to reduce your insulin, and that's definitely going to promote fat burning. So if you want to lose fat, sure, you could do that, but still. So, it's like a lot of things. There's probably a little bit of truth to it or a little bit of validity to it. But I think overall, I don't think anyone should do that. That seems like a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, they kind of say that they got to a certain point and then they were like, I need to stop. And I'm like, that's because it was biting in the butt. But the thing I was saying about the health field was that nobody's figured out what the problem is in their diet. And so they keep going towards eating less and less of things, which led them to fasting and eventually to dry fasting, because that's the only option they have left.
Wow.
Because everything they're eating is causing them health problems. They go from diet to diet to diet to diet, and it doesn't fix them, or it fixes their old problem, but then it gives them new problems, and then they don't know what to do. And so then they just go, okay, not eating is the answer.
No.
What we do need for like scientific detox in our bodies, folks, is we do need protein. Like we absolutely need protein. You need protein to protect yourself, as we're talking about with all these antibodies. You need protein to make those things. So if you don't have protein, you're not protecting yourself from these things. The benefit to fasting is, yes, you're not putting more toxins in your, well, depending upon what you're doing for fasting, because if you're doing carrot juice fasting, you're not going to make it. But if you're not putting toxins in your body, okay, so you have 1, 2, 3 days or however long of not putting poisons in. Okay, so your average of toxin intake has gone way down because you factor in zeros, averages drop. But then what your body you weren't pooping very much at all. You're not getting rid of stuff out of your body. That's the problem. So yeah, you may not be taking in poisons, but you're also not pushing them out. And in toxic bile paradigm, it's kind of like, okay, so you don't pump out bile for a while. Let's say you got a bunch of bile leaking into your blood. You don't pump out bile for a while because you're not eating. So your liver can catch up on the bile that's in your bloodstream. You're not dumping bile, so you're not leaking bile. Your liver catches up on cleaning your blood of the bile, and you feel amazing because you're not leaking toxic bile with vitamin A into your blood. And then when you go back, this is what happens to everybody. They go back to eating, and then they feel like crap again because they're right back on the same diet, and they start dumping bile again, and they start leaking it back into their bloodstream, and they're back in the same scenario they were in before. And then they go, I just got to fast again. And you go, no, you're not fixing anything.
Yeah.
So
the time frames don't line up, right? So you can, let's say, fast for, I don't know, whatever, 3 or 4 days, or even a couple of weeks, that extreme. But like everyone's experiencing here, this is a long, multi-year project, right? There's no quick fix. And so, fasting, for a few days or whatever, I just don't see it being very beneficial in the long haul, right? Yeah.
Well, I was just about to post on Twitter. I was going to say, like most people on the internet with their testimonials are like days to weeks, whereas we're like months to years, and you're at a decade. So it's like we're just not the same. We're working on long term. They're working on what can we take to suppress symptoms short term, whether it's natural or synthetic. They're just shutting things down. So let's get into the super chats. So Zendog Breath, he's a big fan. He says, thank you both. Add one more to the list of formerly wrecked folk in your debt. Zendog had terrible sacroiliitis. Grant, I don't know if you've seen the Accutane and sacroiliitis research.
No,
but it's a huge side effect of Accutane. So the lower back pain, basically. Zendog had it real bad, and he shot a bunch of questions to me on Twitter they were respectful. And so I kept answering them, and then he decided to try it. And now he's one of our biggest fans out there. So
okay. All right.
Shout out to Zen Dog. And then, he asked again with another super chat. He said, do you just dislike chicken, or what is it about chicken?
No, it's not that I dislike chicken. So early on when I started this project, looking at what I can eat, I emailed one of the biggest, probably chicken producers here in the province, this factory farm chicken. And I asked about how much vitamin A do you give to your chickens? And the guy, proudly responded, oh, no worries. We give them, I forget what it was, but it was a huge amount of vitamin A in the feed of the chickens. And I go, okay, that's it. Chicken's off the menu. So it's not that I don't like chicken. If I went to like a regular, let's say an organic chicken farmer, and there are some here in the province, I could do that. I would definitely eat chicken, but it's just, I'm not going to go buy factory farm chicken just because I know they feed them. So, yeah.
Okay. And Zendog has another one. Do you ever get a taste for like tart flavor or lemons or kiwis or anything like that?
No, I don't. No.
All right.
No.
Thank you for all the super chats, Zendog. And then he has another one. Was urushiol a problem before retinoic acid was? I don't know exactly what he means by that, unless he just means in nature, but go ahead.
Yeah, I guess. Well, urushiol is, the poison ivy molecule. And yes. So, they're probably both a problem historically. We just didn't know about the retinoic acid one. People, by experience discovered that urushiol was a problem. And probably, I think, I don't know when, but obviously, on the peel of mangoes, the same thing. So people would have known that there's a problem in touching these plants. Retinoic acid is much more kind of scientifically difficult to kind of understand that it's there and actually causing harm. And I think if I'm going right by what I've read is 1960-ish, retinoic acid was kind of isolated as a molecule. So yeah. Urushiol would be way first.
Yeah, there was David Hagerston, who's also a big researcher and fan. He found a certain capsaicinoid, so in spicy, a compound found in spicy peppers that was actually just two retinoic acids stuck together.
Okay.
And so if we can cleave that, all of a sudden we just ate retinoic acid, which is wild. So then we have another one from Zendog. Familiar with Tony Heller yet? Another engineer.
No, I'm not. I don't know the name. No.
I'm not either.
Okay.
Taolin. Sorry, I missed Taolin. Okay, Taolin asks, how has your family reacted to your vitamin A research and your diet? Are they convinced?
Well, so I have in my family, career medical professionals. And of course, when I first started this, they told me I was completely nuts and, basically laughed at it. My two sons were on board with this for quite a long time and both have gone, relatively low on vitamin A. They've since gone off to university and, been indoctrinated with who knows, the crazy stuff that goes on there. So they're not quite as rigorous as I would like, but fine. They're still young. They'll eventually figure it out. So now my family members in the health space, they're finally coming around. It's taken 10 years, but they've eyewitnessed my recovery. And they're not doing so well themselves these days. And so they're coming around and, I've got friends my age, that, one guy has had both shoulders replaced. Another guy's had both hips replaced. Another guy has had both his knees replaced. And, here I am cycling with, 25-year-olds and, doing great, right? Now I've got, my bones and joints are hanging in there, far better than my peers. And so they're starting to actually take this more seriously. And who knows how long it'll really take them.
Right. Yeah. A big paleo advocate who thought he was super healthy he just had a hip replaced and he's on testosterone replacement therapy. So I kind of go, it's not working out so good for you. Yeah. Okay. Next question from Austin. Thank you for the super chat, Austin. Where do you buy your meat from, Grant? I buy from Sunworks here in Calgary. I also buy sugar, yeast-free organic spelt sourdough from Lakeview Bakery.
Oh, okay. I know Lakeview, but I don't know the bakery there. So I was buying my bison from a bison rancher down by Lethbridge. I think he temporarily went out of business, but he's now back in business, and his name is Cody Spencer. So you can probably, it's Cody Spencer. You'll be able to find him. So he's a bison rancher in southern Alberta. And when he shut down his operation, there's another bison rancher up at Red Deer that we bought bison from. But so I'm buying from independent farmers, and same as much as I can with the beef. So these buying directly from farmers. And with the wheat, we got the wheat from I want to say Grand Prairie. There's an organic wheat grower up at Grand Prairie where we're ordering the wheat for milling it ourselves. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool. Let's go. There was one. Oh, here we go. Zendog is making a comment. We lost 7 out of 14 birds in 5 years on commercial feed, like high vitamin A feed, right? They went lame on me. Our last 7 are old and rocking on feed. We make our own, no supplements.
Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome. Let me go. Towel-in's getting into details. How often have you pooped over the years versus now? Has this varied over time?
Oh, what a thorny question. Well,
we get into poop in our world.
So when I was really sick, when I first, before I actually started my diet, but I was really sick. I had serious GI issues, and it was disgusting and ugly, and I don't want to talk about it. Pretty quickly after getting onto my low vitamin diet, I think within 6 months, that completely cleared up. And I'm amazingly regular. So, once a day, I have my morning coffee if I'm on the coffee. Once a day, that's it. And I'm done. So, yeah, it's just like clockwork and no problems whatsoever.
Cool. Were there any more, Joe? Well, I just wanted to add one more thing, since when we talked about the binding proteins, the antibodies and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Most people haven't heard of transthyretin or transthyretin.
Okay. Right.
And so folks and we have people in the program who are, over time getting off their thyroid meds completely, which is almost unheard of out in the normal alternative health worlds and normal health worlds. The doctors say, once we put you on this, you're on it for good. Mm-hmm. And we're fixing that. So one of the things that I want you folks to know about retinol binding protein and I'm just going to call it transthyretin.
Yeah.
But what does that word mean? It's a protein that binds. It's got a retinol binding protein with a retinol in it. And the transthyre, the THYR, is thyroid. It's T4. So transthyretin is a protein made by your body that binds up retinol as a toxin, and it binds up thyroid hormone. So what that means is, so if your body has a bunch of vitamin A around, it's going to bind up more thyroid hormone into that protein as a way of protecting you. Do I know why it does it? No, I don't know. But all of a sudden, if you have less vitamin A in your system, you don't have to make so much transthyretin, and then you have more T4 available. You know how people measure free T4 as the active stuff? Well, you're going to have more free T4 because it's not bound up. So your body is making things like your body is actually reducing your thyroid function by making transthyretin to bind up vitamin A in it. And this is my theory as to why we're able to fix thyroid problems that other people don't, is because we have less vitamin A coming in and you have more free T4, and therefore you'd have more free T3 because your liver works better, and that's what converts T4 to T3. So that's just another thing on the binding proteins and how they cause us problems by having to make them. And the reason they're there is because they're protecting you from toxins. So anyway, okay. So then I think we kind of covered that, Gianni. We had the next one. How many times did you go to the bathroom during the detox? I mean, we're kind of on the same poop I mean, I don't know if we're talking
Oh.
urine or poop, but if you want to answer it, if you already feel like you answered it, then we got
No,
that.
I think I answered that. Yeah.
Okay, so next question from Tao Lin. Any plans to do more gerbil experiments? Those were great. Can you talk about those a bit? And you could talk about the other gentleman who did it too.
Yeah. No immediate plans. My wife wasn't really keen on that, especially, what happened last time. I might redo it. I'm disappointed. I got to say, I'm disappointed that, other people haven't taken that on. One, it's not very expensive, and it's actually a fun little thing to do. And you don't call it an experiment, just you're keeping pets. There was another person in Australia, I think his name is Michael, and I think he had 2 mice, both female mice, and they lasted, I think, 51 weeks, almost a year. And so that was kind of the only repeat of that I'm aware of. And just want to add something. If someone was going to do this experiment with gerbils, in Alberta you're not allowed to have rats, so have to use gerbils here. But if someone's going to do this, I was informed by a small animal keeper, somebody who's knows what they're doing and keeping these small animals, and he said, "Oh, you made a mistake by having 2 males in the same cage, because after a while they get after each other and start blaming each other for the lack of a female, and they're going to try to take out the competition." So you have to be careful. If you're going to have 2 males, that have to be in 2 separate cages. Obviously, you don't want to get a male and a female unless you want more of them, or 2 females, right? So just a heads up. But it's a simple experiment. It's not expensive, and I think it'd be really worthwhile for somebody else to pick it up. I don't plan on doing it, again, not this year anyway. I would have to change, some things around the house to do it.
Maybe I'll have to, Grant, we talked about the aquarium thing and and now we got the gerbil thing, or whatever rodents we're going to do. Maybe I'll have to just start doing the experiment here and just have like I could have like a live stream of the, of all.
Why not? Yeah, you could actually, you could have them on your background there, every live stream, and people monitor their progress. But I think there's another part of the question. Was there another part of the question?
Was there another part? I don't. Let me see. Let me scroll
down.
No,
that was it.
I think that was
okay.
Oh no, he just wanted you to talk about it for a bit.
Okay.
Okay. So Beth has a question. Beth's a big fan too. She was my last guest on the show. She says, "Could you guys talk about why protein from muscle meat is better than plant sources, please?"
Well, I don't know where to go with that one. I think proteins from plants, are going to be not as complete. I guess that's what it's in the literature. I don't know if that's really valid or not. But the other thing about plant protein, you have to be concerned about any kind of toxins that you're going to get with that plant protein. And so that's the only opinion I have on it. I think, if somebody's really opposed to eating animals, then, you got to do what you got to do. And that's all I'll say. I don't know.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So let me just add, there is one very specific, well, it's called an aminosulfonic acid. It's not technically an amino acid, but taurine. Yeah, when people talk about the Price Pottinger, the cat experiments, and they cooked the meat, probably really cooked it, they destroyed the taurine, and the cats got tons of problems from the lack of taurine. The taurine had been destroyed in the cooking process. Cats got tons of problems, especially eye problems. Well, what were they probably also feeding these cats, making sure they got plenty of? Well, vitamin A. They were probably giving them, some other things that had vitamin A in it. Taurine is only found in muscle meat. It is not in dairy. It is not in eggs. So vegetarians, you're not going to be getting taurine either. But taurine conjugates bile acids, so it can turn bile acids either into better forms that are less toxic or worse forms that are more toxic. So, but without any taurine there, you're not going to have that. And one of the things that taurine binds to in the eye is retinaldehyde.
Yeah.
So taurine can actually bind to retinaldehyde to protect your eyes. Funny that the cat's got lots of eye problems, right? So that's one of the things that is going to be missing entirely from a lacto-ovo vegetarian diet or a vegan diet. So that taurine can be an issue. And taurine for some people helps them amazingly, and for some people will change their bile acid recipe to something that is worse, and they feel worse. So again, it's just another thing that you can try. But the other thing is just generally in terms of eating enough food. A lot of you have seen, like, let's say, vegans on the internet making videos, and you watch them slowly kind of waste away. Plant protein is just going to be harder to get to. Like, plants don't want to be eaten. So what do plants do? They're hard to digest, and they do chemical warfare. That's what they do. Yeah. They don't run away. They don't have claws. They don't growl. They don't do anything to tell you not to eat them, except maybe bright colors. They make themselves brightly colored to tell animals and us that they're poisonous. So they warn us. And then the bitter tastes and the sour tastes and these things are tastes that we have to tell us to avoid toxins. The other thing that can happen is we can just simply get too much fiber on a vegetarian or a vegan diet because you're trying to get enough protein. But even still, if you're trying to do beans, like, to get enough protein potentially for a person, you might be eating an obscene amount of fiber that your guts may not be able to handle. So then you're fixing one problem in the protein, but you're creating another problem with a huge excess of fiber that you can't deal with. There's the B12 potential issue. There's just the total protein issue. I just got an email today about a mom who wants to help her child with eczema. And just based on the name, I could kind of tell that it was somebody, well, anyway, their diet, I see with people who do not eat meat. She said the family was I think vegetarian was the way she put it, which vegetarian can mean all sorts of things. But one of the biggest problems I've seen is in people who want to recover from this is if they do not eat enough protein to make these binding proteins and to run their liver, they don't recover well. And they don't get enough zinc because they're not eating meat. And if they don't supplement zinc, they're in big trouble. They're not getting taurine, they're not getting zinc, they're not getting enough protein. And they don't recover as well because detox uses up tons of nutrients. You got to, if you want to clean up your house, you're going to use tons of cleaning products. If you want to clean up your body, you're going to use tons of nutrients. So if you're not getting those from the diet, and meat is a huge part of that, you're not going to make it, or it's going to be super long. So whenever there's a saying I have about this, which is your physiology doesn't care what your philosophy is. So if you decide not to eat meat for whatever reason, religious reason, humane reasons, I don't care, and your body needs it to heal, to put it bluntly, you're screwed. You've chosen a path that is getting in the way of you getting back to health. I don't push high meat diets on everybody. I don't push vegan diets on anybody. If it's working for you, great. If you're going to do a vegan or a vegetarian diet, there are definite holes in there that if they're not addressed are going to get in the way. So that's really what I have to say about that. I don't care if somebody wants to be a vegan, that's fine. But if they come to me, I've had this a lot with Indian clients, right? Because they don't eat beef, and they generally don't eat much meat. And they come to me after taking Accutane, and they just do not get better. It's like people who don't salt their food at all, they don't get better. And people who are really sick and will not eat meat will not get better. I've seen it. So I don't care about the philosophy argument. I only care about the real world. And if they're not getting better and they're missing something that I think they need, there's only so much I can do. Your philosophy doesn't care. Your physiology doesn't care what your philosophy is. That's all there is to it. So that's that. So we got more questions for you, Grant. I killed some time, so we got more questions. Yeah. But anyway, protein from meat is just easier to digest. We are omnivores. Like, you can tell by our teeth that we eat plant foods. You can tell by our eyes that we hunt. We have stomach acid. We are both. We are omnivores. That's why we thrive everywhere on the planet, is because we can pretty much make any food supply work. Does that mean all the food supplies are optimal for our health? No. but can we make it work? Yes. So I don't know why people argue about we're all vegan or we're all meat eaters. We're not. It's very obvious that we're mixed, and it's only people who ignore these very obvious signs of the other side that think we're all one or the other. So, okay, but protein, beef and meat is just the easiest source of protein, and if you need it, and you don't want to fill yourself up on fiber and roughage and all that stuff, you kind of need meat to get enough protein if that's what you need. So that's what I got. Okay, Gina says, how has low vitamin A improved your dental health?
Yeah, well, so this is what got me messed up and what got me into this entire mess, I believe. So, I don't know, 15 years ago, my dentist was telling me, you've got, quite aggressive gum recession. What the hell, eating lots and why, I didn't know why. And so that's why I started, really kind of, pounding back on the dairy and, lots of calcium. And I'm going to, help, slow this down. And, of course, it just made it far worse. So back then, kind of my age, a lot of kind of dental work, just mostly, fillings and stuff. But my teeth, I felt, were just really kind of weak and not great. And even my dentist had that opinion. Then I think about probably year 6, went to my dentist and, regular checkup, and my teeth are feeling good and feeling strong. And my dentist actually started giggling. He's looking at my mouth and he's started giggling. I thought, oh shit, he's seeing a lot of money. And he said, your teeth look amazing. Freaking last thing I've ever expected to hear from my dentist. So in my recession, my gum recession has reversed. So there's no longer any concern with the gum recession. So that's a huge recovery, I think. And overall, my teeth feel really strong and solid. It's kind of hard. That might really sound strange to somebody who hasn't kind of experienced this weakening of your teeth. But so yeah, there's been a big improvement in my overall dental health, and so I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Yeah, I never really had a lot of dental problems, so I didn't have that. Like, everybody's got their weak spots, right? And dental was just never one of mine. Thank goodness. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So next one from Zendog is, how has your mood or personality changed?
I think it has. So of course, when I was really sick, I was, nobody's happy when you're sick, right? And so generally pretty unhappy about things, I suppose. Also, I was quite aware that I was going to die. I was told I was going to die, and I actually felt like I was going to die, and I ended up getting really, really close to that. But overall, I think my mood has changed, where I'm just really, really calm, really relaxed. Nothing kind of phases me. Shouldn't say nothing, but I don't get worked up about anything. I'm, actually just the other day, someone hit my car on the street, smashed into my car, and this young woman comes up and says, "Oh, I smashed into your car." And I go, "Okay, that's not a good thing, but okay, we'll work it out, right?" So my mood is very, very relaxed, and this is one thing, actually, maybe I'll mention this. Like, several people who have been taking Accutane have reported that they've completely lost their empathy for other people. They've used the phrase that it's dehumanized them. So they've lost their empathy and compassion for other people. They don't feel like they're connected with other people. This vitamin A thing is seriously messing with people's mental health. It's not just Accutane. Vitamin A, of course, is be doing the same thing, maybe just at a slower pace. So I think there's a really big connection with mental health and vitamin A toxicity. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Actually, I was going over something on Twitter just the other day about ashwagandha, which is an herb that is used in Ayurvedic medicine, and it's a nightshade. It's in the nightshade family with tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, and eggplant, and people are getting anhedonia, or the inability to feel emotions from that.
Oh, okay. All right.
So people seem to ignore that Denmark completely banned it.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
It takes a lot for a country to ban an herb. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so what we're looking at is really, I kind of look at it as, toxicity can do that. Actually, there was some research coming out now that certain painkillers Like
Oh,
even
yeah.
acetaminophen could change like your
Oh, yeah.
ability to empathize and have emotions.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
You know,
yeah, I mean, it all comes down to the liver, folks. It's all there. That's really what we're talking about with all of this stuff. So, okay, Headwood has a question. I might have to explain this a little bit. But Grant, have you had any significant experiences around retracing phenomena, whether physical, emotional, spiritual, or otherwise in nature? Do you want me to explain that a little bit? You know what
sure.
retracing is? Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't know what that means. Yeah.
Retracing is a phenomenon that's noticed as people are getting better. And actually, you may have had this with your eyes. So as you're getting better, often we see symptoms that maybe you had before, or maybe you had in a mild way, they come back. They come back for a while and then they go away again. And then they're gone for good. So like when you mentioned you had some eye problems before this, and then they kind of got better and then they came back during the process, that's kind of an example of retracing.
I see.
So have you had any other experiences like that, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual,
No,
anything like that during the process?
I don't think so. What has happened though, kind of interesting, is a couple of years ago, I really started to think about my childhood friends. Like these old memories started coming back, and I started remembering, you know, kids that I played with in grade 3 and stuff. And you know, anyway, so that has happened in music too. So you know, getting more interested in music, something that, you know, somewhat interested in my teenage years, and all of a sudden, I shouldn't say all of a sudden, but, you know, now, you know, I listen to music differently than I did, you know, when I was, quote, sick. I just like, I enjoy it more. I can hear it better. It's just like, you know, I have a better connection to it. So you know, I wouldn't call that retracing, but I'm just thinking, you know, anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It can be hard to look back, and it's because I think this is part of the retracing phenomenon. Like looking back, and now that you've been doing this for so long, and and if you didn't know about the retracing phenomenon as you were going through it,
yeah,
you might just kind of usually it's a fairly short thing. It's like it's like weeks to maybe months, and then it comes and it goes. It comes for no reason and it goes for no reason, and your body just kind of like throws it off. And then I actually do believe that we commonly forget about it. Like it's almost like that the whole process has been wiped, and we just don't remember it until somebody goes, "Oh yeah, do you remember that? You had that retracing?" And I go, "Oh yeah, I remember it because very early on when I started doing hair testing and I started supplementing based on the hair test, I had a retracing of athlete's foot on both feet, a week apart. It happened. I was just like, I usually don't realize it until it's over, and then I went, "Wait, was that the retracing that they talk about? That was crazy." So. Yeah, so it's a very interesting phenomenon, but I would totally go along with, if you don't remember it very well happening, it kind of like wipes it. It's like the toxicity is just like leaving your body for good. And that's what I think it actually is. So anyway, okay. So Tao Lin asks, what do you two think about vitamin A and lifespan?
Wow. I'm not sure about lifespan, but definitely improve your health span. You know, there's a number of people have contacted me about, you know, vitamin A and the connection with longevity. Now, I think there's definitely something there, because if you really understand the mechanism of vitamin A damage and what it's actually doing, you know, it's causing defectively structured proteins. And so this is actually what we see. You imagine you see a healthy young person, you know, they look great. And then progressively over the next, you know, number of decades, they don't start to look, you know, quite a bit different and, quote, get aged. Well, I think that's the cumulative effect of defectively structured proteins. And I suppose there's a certain aspect of that that's natural. Like that's what happens to all humans. We all get old and die. But with vitamin A, you're accelerating that. You're accelerating those numbers of defective proteins. And I have this analogy of, I don't want to kind of drag this out, but analogy of a brick wall on a building. Let's imagine, and each one of those bricks is a cell in the matrix. And if a brick falls out of, let's imagine this magic brick wall, brick falls out of that structure, a new one can grow in and replace it. So those are your stem cells that are doing that. But in order to do it properly, it needs to have properly structured proteins. And so over time, as you accumulate more and more vitamin A, you're going to have defectively structured proteins. So one of those cells falls out of that brick wall, the new one doesn't grow in, or doesn't grow in properly, it doesn't bind properly, and now you're not looking so great after, a number of decades of poorly maintained proteins. So yeah, I think could have something to do with lifespan. I don't know. I'm absolutely convinced for sure health span.
Yeah, health span. I want to focus on that because, like, folks, let's say you're coming to all of this and you were born jaundiced and you got all the vaccines and you get pharmaceuticals for your sinus infections and you did all sorts of these things. And then you got on the health nuttery, high vitamin A diets and you did all this stuff. We cannot turn an old car into a brand new car again. So we can't undo the damage that may have been done in the past. Can the body regenerate? Can the liver regenerate? Can we fix a lot of the problems? Can you restore an old car to very much close to new? Yes. Is that old car going to have all those miles on it still? Yeah. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to restore your health. You might have lost some top end years off of your potential longevity. It is what it is. Like, we all made our mistakes, but the goal, and my goal for other people, is to restore your health as much as possible so that the rest of your life can be as enjoyable as possible. And one of my goals in terms of, I think, when I eventually pass away is I want it to be quick. Like, I want it to be like when the end comes, I want it to be like that. I don't want it to be, oh, my kidneys are failing. Oh, like kind of like Grant was in. The skin is failing, the kidneys failing, the liver's it's all breaking down, and it's just system after system after system. We've all seen, like, our relatives and our loved ones and our friends go through this constant breakdown. What I'm after is when you're healthy, like if you have a bad thing happen to you when you're really healthy, you're going to either recover or you're going to croak. That's really what's going to happen. You either make it through or you don't. And that's what I want, is I want to be healthy up until the end. And so I get to do the things that I want to do and, enjoy my loved ones and all that stuff. If I don't make it to 120, I don't care. I just want, it'd be nice to show people that this can be done even after a life of abuse that I put myself through with all the health nuttery and other things. But if it doesn't happen, you're just going after the best you can get at this point. You might have spent some of your health points that you aren't going to get back. Okay. That's such as life. C'est la vie. So here we go. Next one. Well, I mean, what did you think of that, Grant? You think of kind of the same thing?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Mikey asks, we talk about physical and mental health when removing vitamin A. Are there any deeper, quote, spiritual effects? Or, okay, if this is a simple no, just curious. So he's saying it's okay if it's just a no.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, that's a
get super deep, Grant. Come on, go. Really
No. I'm not. I'm not big on religion, but I'm most certainly not agnostic either, or an atheist. But I don't know. I who knows? I'll leave it at that.
I think in terms of mental and spiritual stuff, all I can say is I think it can help open one's self to, so that as they say, what's the saying? The sign of a true intelligence is being able to hold two ideas in your head at the same time and not go insane. Well, so I think as we get, let's say, less toxic and our brain's working better and we're more intelligent and we can kind of look at things, then we can question things without getting upset. We can just look at things and go, well, maybe this is true, maybe it's not. Okay, I'm going to kind of act like this is true, but the other side could be true. Like I'm talking to, actually one of the things we might talk about, Grant, here is Grant's getting into the, well, Grant's always been into it, but the no virus idea. And that's one of the areas that I know Grant mentioned he wanted to go into. And I've been pushing that kind of idea on Twitter because it just, none of it makes any sense at all. And but we could, so the idea here that I'm getting at with that is, could there be something going between people? Does it have to be a virus? No, but could there be some signal? Could there be some energetics? Could it be weather? Could it be other things that are making people sick around the same time? Absolutely. So could it be something spreading in its own way? Yeah. But is it a virus? No. So we can like hold these ideas without getting attached to either one, while we can still work on them and hopefully improve humanity's health at the same time. So that's just my thing. What do you think, Grant? You want to add anything to that?
Well, kind of on a similar kind of thread is, one of the things that motivates me here is, I've recovered my health, and I could have just moved on, right? I could have just said, okay, this is interesting. My health is better. I'm going to go back to whatever I was doing. But I think there's something really big and really important here. And especially when I think about these vitamin A supplementation programs that are going on, like the World Health Organization is running them in, I think, 121 countries. Here in Canada, there's a very big organization funded by Bill Gates doing something similar. I think it's probably in conjunction with the WHO, but they're, supplementing vitamin A all over the freaking world. And this is hugely damaging to childhood health around the world. And, this is way bigger than just, us individually restoring our health. Like if you feel like you've gotten something from this and it's helped you, then I think it's, a bit of an obligation to pay some of that back and, spread the message and get more awareness to this, because ultimately what I would like, sometime, I don't know if it's going to take 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or maybe never, but is to get this vitamin A, crossed off the list of vitamins, because it's just a freaking toxin and it's poisoning humanity. And I put up a blog post on, the vitamin A content in infant formula. It's 10x higher than it even should be by regular guidelines. And, just think how devastating that is to the health of children in North America. And it's just like holy smokes, there's an obligation from us as, part of society to help, close the case on this. Anyway, that's why I'm preaching. But yeah.
It's okay to preach here.
Yeah. But no, it really is. Like, this is not a small deal. This is a very, very big deal. So it's affecting millions of people, like tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people. And it's a big fat lie, or it's a big fat bunch of botched science. Either way, unless we do something about it, nobody else will. It's kind of the way I look at it. So. Yep.
Okay. So Zendog has a question. How do you eat in other countries?
I haven't been traveling a lot. Did a stint over to Southeast Asia, which was actually not too bad. So lots of rice, and you can always get meat on the menu. So rice and meat, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do when I go to restaurants. It's like, look for the meat, and then I figure out something like grain or beans or whatever. Like, here in the States, like my kids like Chipotle.
Oh, okay.
That is a restaurant that has made their entire fortune on meat and beans and rice.
Okay.
And it's probably, for a lot of people out there, some of the healthiest stuff they eat all week, as long as they're not putting all the other crap on it. Yeah, it's kind of funny. So I can go there. I know. And yes, people are going to say, oh, there's spicy peppers on it and nightshades. And I'm like, but it's better than the other crap out there. Yeah. So
I was in Armenia, and, it's like rice and meat, no problem. Like, it's like everyone eats rice. Like, it's like universal food almost. So. Yep.
I wanted to answer Zendog's question with how do I eat in other countries? The same as I eat here. I put the food in my mouth, I chew it, and I swallow it. No.
Sure.
Anyway, he's that type of guy, with the humor like that. So, okay. O2 Anza, thank you for the super chat. He says, how long is the meat cook time plus is taurine supplementable? I think I'll answer this one. I don't know that this. First, folks, the lower the temperature you cook your meat at, the better it's going to be for you in general. So like when we're talking like grilling, where you're actually charring the meat, is not as good for you if, let's say, if you were to, I know this is going to sound crazy, but if you were to boil the meat or pressure cook it or something where the temperature is not going to rise above 212 degrees Fahrenheit. That's better than like 450 or 500 degrees Fahrenheit. When you burn things, you create toxic things. So like what I've been doing with my version of Grant's, the joking prison diet is I'm making like beef or bison and sorghum and various beans in the pressure cooker. And I'm cooking the meat in the pressure cooker so it doesn't go above 212. And other people have been finding that they often feel better when they're not frying or grilling or like high temperature cooking their meat. When they keep it to boiling or steaming or pressure cooking, they feel better. Is that taurine? Maybe. I don't know at what temperature. I have not looked that up. If somebody wants to look up at what temperature taurine breaks down and get back to me on this, you can. But I do know with like animal foods, they cook the crap out of it. So when you're looking at Pottinger's cat studies, I don't know what temperature they cooked all the stuff at, but they probably cooked the hell out of it because they were trying to prove a point. Is taurine supplementable? Yeah, absolutely. You can get it in pills. You can get it in powder. You can, there's magnesium taurate, where magnesium is bound to a taurine. There's potassium taurate. Potassium is bound to a taurine. You can get it a bunch of different ways. Just what I'm telling you is if you try it and you don't feel good, stop taking it. It's not helping you. There's not going to be some magical day where it all turns around and it feels good. So you can try it, but that's the take on that. Did you have anything to add, Grant?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, so Zen Dog asks thoughts on calcium, bones, teeth, and other thoughts on calcium with bones and teeth and other minerals.
Well, I haven't supplemented with calcium. But I do drink a spring water. So I don't use tap water. I use spring water for anything that I drink. So I think I've got enough calcium from that. I don't know. I seem to be doing well bone-wise, teeth-wise. I don't feel like I'm suffering from any calcium deficiency. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I just want to add that I think so there's Grant's blog post on infant formulas on the side there, and Joe put up the link. Thank you, Joe. I think most calcium problems, as Grant I'm sure would agree, are caused by vitamin A, which has been shown in the research. Like over 3,000 units of vitamin A a day showed increased osteoporosis in the northern European countries. 3,000 units of vitamin A a day. If you're not minimizing vitamin A, people can eat that in breakfast like easily, and then they just add to it the rest of the day. Vitamin A literally yanks calcium out of your bones. Well, then the other problem is, like, let's say people supplementing vitamin D or trying to get more vitamin D from foods. Vitamin D will increase the calcium in your blood one of two ways. This is all in the literature. You can look up bone resorption vitamin D. Vitamin D is going to raise the calcium in your blood one of two ways. It's either going to grab more from your diet, but if you're not eating a lot of it, it's going to pull it out of your bones, literally, bone resorption. So these two fat-soluble vitamins, rat poison vitamin D3, I mean, vitamin D3 is sold as Terra D3, T-E-R-A D3, rat poison, and D-Con, D-Con, rat poison. It's sold as rat poison. It kills pets. It kills rats. It's slowly killing us too. So those two things, those two fat-soluble vitamins are ruining bones. I tend to think that the minerals that we can have problems with, where we need them, but also we can tend to get problems with them very easily, like calcium. We can easily get an excess of calcium, iron, iodine, these other things. I think our bodies are very good at where we need them, but they're easily overdone. Our bodies are very good at recycling them. Like if you cut up a thyroid hormone, there's no reason why your body has to throw away the iodine. It can just reuse that iodine. It's not like the iodine is used up. So I think with calcium and other things like that, if you have too much calcium, your body will put it into soft tissues. We just haven't seen a lot of, I mean, I've seen multiple people, multiple women whose DEXA scans, their bone scans actually went to, so after doing our program long enough, they went to building bone. They were not losing bone anymore. It wasn't just not losing bone. They went from the red to the green. They were actually rebuilding bone. Are we giving people calcium supplements or telling them to eat high calcium foods? No. I think, and how do cows build these giant bones on grass? Like, are they getting some crazy amount of calcium from grass or the grains that they're feeding them? No, they're able to do this. So, Magnesium is a huge part of retaining calcium. And zinc also. Zinc raises vitamin D in the blood. So, and zinc is also, vitamin D and vitamin A go up and down opposite. So if you were out there wanting to raise your vitamin D, having less vitamin A in your system will raise your vitamin D. They are considered antagonistic. Just don't ever do the stupid approach of trying to fix your vitamin A toxicity by taking vitamin D supplements. You'll end up vitamin A toxic and vitamin D toxic. Don't do that. So anyway, calcium is, we just don't see a lot of deficiency problems with it. You get rid of the poisons and your body's actually very, very good at regulating it and not losing too much. So that's my take on it. Okay, Amirhan BL23, thank you for the super chat. Sorry, thank you everybody for the super chat. Sorry if I'm forgetting to say it. He says taurine fixed my acne while nothing else worked. So this is why, like, some people say I take taurine, I don't feel good. Some people say taurine fixed my problem. It changes the bile recipe. It does bind to retinaldehyde. So it can have benefit, like glycine. Glycine binds to amino acids. Glycine can help people sleep really well, or glycine can like stir up copper, I believe, and cause people to be anxious. And, you know, somebody was saying they were anxious and they couldn't sleep on it. These things that affect your bile they change the bile recipe, and you can end up with a better bile recipe or a worse bile recipe, because it doesn't just say taurine makes everything better or glycine makes everything better. This is the detail of the bile science that is not out there very much. But if it helps, great. That's what we're after. Okay, Zendog Breath says he wants to talk about moles and age spots. Grant, you want to start?
I haven't had moles, well, nothing that's changed, but I have had age spots that have disappeared. And actually, somebody sent me an email and said, hey, those age spots are actually filled full of lipofuscin, which is, a fat-soluble wrapper of, often beta-carotene or retinoids in general. So yeah, I've had age spots disappear, some actually pretty significant ones. Anyway, yeah, so what can I say?
Yeah, I have moles that I've had since I was a kid. They haven't gone away yet, but I did actually literally have the age spots from the sun, damage on the top of my head literally peel off about a month or two ago.
Okay. Yeah.
I couldn't figure out why my head was so, like, it felt crusty.
Okay.
And I just kept scratching. And then all of a sudden I looked in the mirror and I was like, wait, it's gone. And that's actually the spot where I've had the challenge in regrowing my hair. And so all of a sudden that goes away. And I started seeing like better growth in that spot. So it's all connected, folks. And vitamin A toxicity is connected with hair loss. That's in the literature.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's one of the classic signs. Yeah.
So, okay, let me see, Joe. I don't know if we're going to get to that right. Well, why don't we just do it? Okay. Zendog's asking, okay, then can you talk on the virus points of view?
Well,
however deep you want to go, Grant.
Yeah, so I have a long overdue blog post on this. I said I was going to write about it, and then the whole pandemic thing happened, and it was completely taboo to say anything along such lines, and so I put it on hold. But I will put up a blog post about it. But one of the most fundamental, most basic things that you can look at is actually if you go to the CDC website and you just Google, are viruses alive? No, the general consensus, medical science, viruses are not alive. Then you dig into it a little bit more. Okay, they're just protein particles, and they're protein particles. And there's some people that claim, well, once it gets into the cell, then it just kind of magically becomes alive. But hold on, these are protein particles. They have no organelles. They have no respiration. They don't consume energy. They don't magically produce energy. They have no locomotion. It's just a freaking protein particle. Now. But of course, they can't tell you that, right? If you go look, it is on the CDC website that no, the general consensus they're not alive. So how the hell do we get infected with a non-living virus? The answer is you don't. But that's not going to make a whole lot of money, and so they've put out this myth of these contagious viruses that threaten us, and therefore, if you're under threat, they'll sell you protection and. It's actually classic racketeering, mafia-style racketeering. That's my take on it. However, some of these protein particles that, maybe virologists think are, quote, viruses, they do replicate. The cell replicates it. So it's a DNA or RNA instruction, and the cell will replicate it over and over and over and over and produce more of it. But the critical point is it's not the virus replicating or hijacking the cell to do it. It's the cell normally does this. And that was the whole intent and purpose of, the intervention that was used during COVID. So no, they're not viruses. It's a scam.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I really like, for those of you who are on Twitter, following Aldhisla, ALDHISSALA, and Jamie Andrews, I forget his Twitter handle. Those are the guys who I really, and Val, I forget Val Zimmer. Their names are more detailed than that, but those are the guys who I really look to on Twitter. And Jamie and the other guys, they're showing that what they call the cytopathic changes, or the disease changes in the cells, are happening. Just, you remember in COVID where they were running the test, the COVID test, and they were running it on like water and juice and all this stuff, and they were coming up positive. Well, what they're finding with viruses is when they have a sample that they know has 0 viruses in it, it's showing the exact same changes and showing viruses just like the stuff that supposedly has viruses in it. So they're showing that it's a change, like Grant is saying, it's something the cell does. It's just whatever happens in the cells is going on. Yeah. And there's this whole narrative to tell us that these are viruses and that when you're sick, it's a virus. But even though if they could show the same changes in a healthy person versus a sick person, well, oh no, it's got to be viruses. So it's just basically they haven't shown any of the connections that they need to show that viruses make people sick. And they even, Aldhisla posts a lot of research showing that they put sick people with well people and they could not get transmission.
That's right. Yeah.
So you start seeing all this and you go, real world stuff says it's BS. And then the cell stuff says it's BS. And you just go, it's BS. So just because somebody says, well, my kids come home from school and they were sick and then I got sick a couple of days later, that doesn't mean it's a virus. Okay. It doesn't mean that it was something pathogen. I go over these examples like, why is yawning contagious? Can somebody explain to me why yawning is contagious? You see somebody else yawn and you want to yawn. Did they give you a virus? Did they give you physical stuff? Why do women's menstrual cycles sync up after a while? Are they exchanging pathogens? Is that what's going on? Why when we hear or see or smell somebody else vomit, do we get nauseous and maybe vomit ourselves? We didn't get a virus from them. So why does everybody seem to catch a cold or the flu when the first cold snap hits? Viruses would replicate less in the cold, right? Cold slows things down. It doesn't speed things up. So why does the first cold snap have everybody getting sick? Is it just the weather change and we have an instinctual biological reaction to that cold snap? A dumping of toxins because the body knows that if it gets cold, everything runs slower. So we better get rid of these toxins right now before it gets cold. So anyway, so there's all these things. This is just where I went viral. And then what we see in people on the program, once they've done it long enough, and you've probably heard this too, Grant, as people get less and less toxic, they stop getting sick.
Yeah. I wrote about that in my 10-year update. No colds, no flus. And I'm pretty sure I'll never have one. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. But also, let me just add, for you folks who are new to this, if you didn't get sick before, like if you didn't get colds or flus before, but you're not well, which is why you're here, and then you start going through the program and you start getting colds and flus, it's not, nothing's failing you. You're actually, your detox mechanisms are starting to work again. They weren't working before. That's why you're sick. That's why you're sick all the time and you're not getting the colds and flus. So you can, as you start to get better, and especially if you're noticing symptoms are getting less, like you're getting better in multiple ways, but you're like, why am I getting colds and flus? That's the detox. That's part of why you're getting better. It's part of the process. You got to clean up the garbage. So the more toxic you are, the less you clean up your garbage. As you get less toxic, the more you start cleaning out your garbage. And then once you get enough of the garbage gone, you don't have to have these garbage dumping cycles. That's how it works. So there's like multiple phases to this. So anyway, so let's get to the next question. Zen Dog is saying, can you give us like a half hour on the inner circle once a month again? I don't know, Grant. If you wanted to join us at the inner circle, you can. We can talk about that offline.
Yeah,
I'm not making any promises. You're not making any promises. We'll
sure. Yeah. I've been
Joe likes to ask for the world, you know.
Yeah, I've been way too busy for the last 3 years, so we'll see. Yeah, things could change. Yeah.
Cool. Tao Lin says, thank you too for the amazing work. Besides all the healing it's generating, the free thinker aspect is inspiring too, exposing that vitamin A is toxic. Yes. Thank you, Tao. Tao is doing his best to help with spreading the word. So I thank you, Tao, for what we've talked about and all that stuff. Dave Hirschman asks, cooking meat low and slow. When I try to do that, it aggravates my acid reflux. Any theories why? Grant, do you have anything to say on that?
No, I don't. No.
Okay. So this is another one of those things where I would say, well, whatever works for you or doesn't work for you, like do more of the stuff that works, do less of the stuff that doesn't. I know, like, I haven't gone back to doing it, but I did the whole primal diet Aujnas thing for a while. I was eating, like, Trader Joe's used to have these amazing New Zealand lamb leg steaks. I was eating them raw with like some balsamic vinegar and some salt. Tastes amazing. I felt better on raw meat than I do on cooked meat. Am I running back to raw meat anytime soon? No, but I may someday. Now, Kelsey, if she eats like a steak that is, or any red meat that is not cooked well enough, she'll get like sulfur burps afterwards. So she always likes to make sure her stuff is fully cooked through. Dave, if you're having issues with like low and slow cooked meat, I'm just showing you that there's like different reactions to different, like Kelsey's not going to be eating raw meat like I am. And if it's not cooked enough, she gets problems. Whereas I feel lighter on raw meat. So if you're just having an individual response to it, then just go with what works for you. That's all I can say for now. And things may change over time. So my assumption is that Kelsey will eventually, her detox systems will improve enough to the point that she can eat, undercooked red meat. That's my assumption. It's something in the detox pathway is not agreeing with whatever you're doing, whatever you're having the issue with. Okay. So, Beth asks, is it better to eat discrete meals or eat small amounts all day? So like 3 meals a day, Grant, or like 6 times a day?
I eat 3 meals a day. The other thing I'll mention, my appetite or my need for food and calories is greatly reduced over the last 10 years. So you might find with more time that you just need less food. So I have no urge to snack during the day. It's like I have breakfast, I have lunch, I have dinner. That's all good for me. But I think it's quite a progression. Like when I first started, I was incredibly hungry all the time, and so eating 3 meals a day and snacking everything else. And with time, that just completely changed. I am fine with 3 meals a day, but whatever works for you.
Yeah, I tend to think that I think I'd probably do best on 2 meals a day and like 1 snack.
Yeah.
I think when people's digestion strength is good, I think it's just digestion is a huge energetic process, and it can be slow for people, especially if people are slow. You want to, I don't think humans are designed for grazing. We're just not. If people are missing their gallbladder, though, I did a whole live stream on like, if you don't have a gallbladder and you don't push out a lot of bile at once because you don't have the gallbladder to hold it to then squeeze it out, then you may need to do things in more doses, more frequent and smaller doses, because your digestion has been literally changed. Like physically changed.
Yeah.
You're missing a part of the digestive system. Go ahead.
No, I've got nothing to add there.
Okay. So I just think, remember that the whole, like, you got to eat 6 times a day. You want to know where it came from. It came from the bodybuilding industry, the supplement industry, to sell you on buying protein powders and the protein bars and the other crap, because nobody's going to cook 6 times a day, and they knew this. But they wanted to tell you that you needed to eat 6 times a day to stay anabolic and to keep the amino acids floating through your system for maximum gains. And it was basically a lie. like the pharmaceutical industry. And because they knew, like, if you're going to eat 6 times a day, it's a lot easier to do it, even if you're doing 3 meals, to have 3 shakes or 3 bars or whatever, like metrics and all that crap that used to be going on. So normal people eating 6 times a day, do you think it's easier to overeat with 3 meals a day, or is it easier to overeat with 6 meals a day? It's way easier to overeat with 6 meals a day, because you're just eating more often. So, and you don't have a meal that's going to be really like satisfying. You just have a bunch of little ones. So your brain may be like, well, I didn't eat very much. I didn't eat very much 6 times a day, but I'm still hungry. So I think 2 or 3 meals a day, maybe with a snack in there if you need it. A healthy snack would be about the most. So that's but gallbladder missing people, you might need to do it more frequently because your digestion is literally changed. So that's that. Okay, so then we have, no more super chats. We're at like 2 hours. So we're going to hit the super chats that are left. And that's what we're going to do for the day. Thank you, Grant, for sticking around this long. Okay, Oregon Jim says, new here, liver is enlarged, alkaline phosphatase is low. Any insights? Going to work with a coach here when I can afford it. Grant, do you have any insights on that? I can take it.
No.
Okay. Alkaline phosphatase, this is going to sound really weird, especially to you ex-Peters. Some of you ex-Peters will get it, but if for you Peters who are here listening to this, you're going to like crap a brick. Phosphorus levels in the body are mostly controlled by your zinc levels. So alkaline phosphatase, there's phosphorus in it, right? It's in the name. Alkaline phosphatase, when it's low, this is actually in the literature, is a zinc deficiency. So we fix the zinc deficiency and the alkaline phosphatase comes up. Do we talk about zinc here a lot? Yes, we talk about zinc here a lot. Funny thing on a hair test. So that's a blood test. We have a hair test for phosphorus. It's one of the minerals we test. When hair phosphorus is low, it's almost always low with zinc. How do we bring hair phosphorus up? We fix the zinc deficiency and the hair phosphorus comes up. Now, some people will start screaming about parathyroid and all this stuff. And I go, you want to know one of the easiest things that I found to fix in my time doing medicine? Since I started doing hair testing, parathyroid problems are the easiest thing for me to fix. Do I mess with calcium? Do I mess with phosphorus? Not really. I fix all the other stuff, and then the parathyroid fixes itself. So we don't obsess on parathyroid. We don't obsess on phosphorus. We don't obsess on calcium. We just fix the problem that is the underlying cause of all of it. So that's that. So I would work on your zinc. However you choose to do that. If you're going to work with one of our people, obviously you'll get zinc measured in your hair and your blood, and then we can go from there. So that's that. Okay, I think that's all. Oh, and I forgot to say thank you very much, Dave, for the $50 super chat. Thank you very much for that. So I guess that's it. Grant, do you have anything you'd like to wrap this up with?
No, I'm all good. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about this again and get more exposure. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Absolutely. I'm sure. I mean, we had the most simultaneous viewers of this live stream that we've had so far. I think the max I saw was 155. So people definitely want to hear what you say. It's also a different day. Maybe the different day is helping too.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Sounds
anyway,
good.
Let me give you so Grant's website. You've seen several of his posts here. I highly suggest reading his blogs. He always throws in some great things like he has a recent one on consuming liver and cancer, some patterns that he's noticed, and other stuff. So I highly suggest reading his blog. He does have his 10th anniversary blog on his site and other gems. So that's Genereux.blog. And then my website, nutritiondetective.com. That's where you can find the supplements and the consultations and the Love Your Liver program. We go into many more topics than just low vitamin A. People who try to pin me into a low vitamin A box, they realize very quickly that I'm not just that. But before I wrap it up, and if you wanted to go to the Love Your Liver program, which is a do-it-yourself, it is basically my life's work, incorporating Grant stuff and my other stuff. That's members.nutritiondetective.com. And finally, I just want to say thank you to Grant for pioneering this work and putting his brain on this and going, not believing the doctors and going, I got this eczema and what can I do? And searching and finding the vitamin A thread that ran through it and then fixing it regardless of what other people said. So I really admire you for that. And I want to thank you for putting that all out there for me to then build upon in my way.
Cool. Yeah, all good. Thank you. All right.
Awesome. Well, great. We'll see you all next time. Next week on Tuesday. See you later. Bye now.